The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
The reviews are in.
You have to go by where... Look.
Here's what Trump's own people are saying about him. He's a f***ing moron. Rex Tillerson, Trump's Secretary of State.
We're lower than the world.
Lower than the world.
He tries to divide us. James Mattis, Trump's Secretary of Defense.
You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other. Very fine people on both sides.
He's an idiot. John Kelly, Trump's Chief of Staff.
They weren't laughing at me.
A professional liar. Gary Cohen, Trump's economic advisor.
There will be no lies.
He thinks he's God. Barbara Rez, SVP of Trump Organization.
I am the chosen one.
Like an 11-year-old child, Steve Bannon, Trump's advisor.
I don't take responsibility.
I think we need to look harder at who we elect.
I don't think he's fit for office.
I have the most loyal people.
Can America survive 4 more years?
We are better than this moment we're in.
Oh, for God's sake.
Oh, my God. Happy Friday, you bastards. It's Friday. Woohoo. Yeah, very excited. Meet the new birtherism, same as the old birtherism. Yesterday, I think I was the first person to bring up what I read in Newsweek magazine. In Newsweek. It's not going to, do any harm to Kamala Harris, but it might actually end Newsweek. Holy crap. So, meet the new birtherism, same as the old birtherism. I don't know. But wow, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. And now you have Huffington Post reporter S.V. Date ask flat out if Donald Trump, after 3.5 years, does he have any regrets about all the lying that he's done to the American people? All the lying that he's done to the American people. Wow.
President, after 3.5 years, do you regret it all the lying you've done to the American people? On
All the
everything.
what?
All the lying, all the dishonesties.
That who has done?
You.
You have done. Tens of thousands.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Shocking, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't know the Huffington Post had reporters either. So I'm shocked. Well, when Ariane Huffington started the Huffington Post, she asked all of us who have big thoughts and are able to write a sentence to write essays for her, upload them. They would provide you with a link, seriously, for an upload, and take your content for free. So, and now I think she runs Thrive Cosmetics, whatever she called it. Yeah. But I was shocked. I was shocked that they had reporters, but they do. And after Trump figured out what was going on, he ignored the question. He ignored it, and he went to another reporter. That's weird. Is it possible Donald Trump could not think of another lie to explain all the lies? Wow, that was really interesting. It was kind of a Zen moment, wasn't it, everybody? Wasn't it like a soothing salve for your soul? It was like, how does a liar and a lying liar and the liars that tell the lying lie cover their lies? Do you know, what do they say about their lying? So he had no choice but to ignore the question, or he would still be answering that question right now, taking us even further down the lying rabbit hole where all the lies live. The memory hole, everybody. The memory hole, for those of you who actually read books. But, this is no longer a contest between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden is winning. Joe Biden has clearly won, actually, the contest. And so now we're into a race to see if Donald Trump can suppress that fact. If he can bury that fact that Joe Biden is kicking his behind all over the United States. Trump knows that he's lost the election, hence the birtherism, right? So he has to switch from fighting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to fighting the election itself. And that is why he is trying to defund the post office and tarnish Kamala Harris, the vice president, who is the nominee for vice president, who will be the next vice president of the United States of America. Unbelievable, but true. And so now we have to bring back the shameful, disgusting lie of birtherism. Now, you know, it's the same old birtherism, except now it's a different target, and it might be even harder to sell this time around. Because Barack Obama was born in Hawaii, and there are plenty of Republicans who aren't really clear that Hawaii is a state. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just too lush. It's too far away. It's too Pacific Ocean-y, South Pacific Ocean-y on top of it. It's too over there. It's not really America. It's not really part of the amber waves of grain or the purple mountains majesty. Okay? And so that might have been something Trump could convince some of the lesser informed sycophants of, that Barack Obama was not born in the United States. But Kamala Harris was born in Oakland, California. Now, even the lowest of the lowlifes have to admit that California is a state, don't you? You have to admit that California is part of the United States. It's not some South Pacific-y, it's North Pacific-y, but it's not some South Pacific-y, out there lush with volcano places. It's part of the United States with, droughts, bad weather, and earthquakes. So, but give Trump credit. You got to give him credit because the original birtherism seemed to be the dumbest, most hateful, far-fetched fairy tale ever told to the American people. And he's come up with a nuttier one with regard to Kamala Harris. And he did do it yesterday. These coronavirus task farce briefings, they are farce. I mean, they're not about coronavirus. There's no coronavirus experts on the stage. There's no doctors. There's no info. It's a campaign event that he's holding from the White House. That's all this is, I mean, it's just. And yesterday you had a reporter ask him whether or not he thought Kamala Harris was qualified to be vice president. And of course he understood exactly where she was going because that thing that was in Newsweek was planted by this lunatic right-wing. Now, listen, there are lawyers who are liars, just like there are people who are not lawyers who are liars, but lawyers and liars is a vowel movement away from the truth, okay? But then there are lawyers. The lawyers who lawyer on behalf of the lying lawyers who get in trouble. And you know who some of those lawyers are? Elijah Cummings was one of those lawyers. He literally was a lawyer who would defend dirty lawyers because he believed that even the dirtiest deserved a defense and a second chance at making things right. Kamala Harris is one of those too. She's a lawyer's lawyer. She truly is a lawyer's lawyer, meaning she's the one that does the paperwork. There are lawyers that never litigate. There are lawyers that, lobby. There are lawyers that do, wills and stuff like. And then there are lawyers that actually litigate, and that's hard work. There's a lot of paper, as you might imagine, with a lawsuit. I mean, there's so much paper. There's briefs. There's memos to the court. There's interrogatories. There's witness testimony. It's really a hard job. She does that work. She is truly a brilliant lawyer. There's no question about it. And that she was the lawyer for the people, where Bill Barr is the lawyer for the president, and Main Justice, where Bill Barr is the Attorney General, it's the only Justice Department in the United States that is bigger than the Justice Department in California, which Kamala Harris ran. So that's like serious lawyering and serious executive, ability and experience. She is perfectly qualified on every front. That is why they're attacking her. And it's the same reason why Donald Trump is attacking the Postal Service. He knows he's going to lose. And all Kamala did was excite us.
all things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
After 5 draft deferments and faked bone spur excuses, Donald Trump has finally gone to war with the U.S. Postal Service. Yeah, the post office. The one that American troops have relied on for over 200 years to bring news from home and deliver our absentee ballots safely back home. And when our service was through, to deliver life-saving prescriptions on time from the VA. Today and every single workday, 330,000 veterans are due a prescription drug delivery by the U.S. Postal Service. And today, tens of thousands aren't getting their prescriptions because Donald Trump declared war on the mail, firing workers, disrupting deliveries, defunding operations. The thing is, this is just a warm-up for the fall. Donald Trump plans to disrupt absentee ballots and vote by mail for millions of Americans in the middle of a pandemic he failed to control. Because Donald Trump knows if the mail delivers ballots to America's veterans, we'll deliver a message right back. You lose.
Oh! Vote vets, everybody. Vote vets. Gotta love that. He finally declared war on the U.S. Postal, the most beloved institution in the United States of America. Been around since the Continental Congress. It predates the Declaration of Independence. It predates, the United States. It's just so unbelievable. I have to just show you that Lieutenant General Honore. You remember Lieutenant General Honore? He was the military man who helped do the response for Hurricane Katrina, and that's probably where you recognize him from. Well, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? Yeah, and now he's elderly, okay? He's up there. He's still vibrant. I mean, he's still got a lot to give, there's no question, but he gave 37 years of service to this here nation, and he can't get his prescriptions. He can't get them. I mean, this is just bizarro world, but check this out.
Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines around the world rely on the post office. As a veteran, I rely on the post office. My e-scripts are not showing up all the time.
Oh, my God.
I had to call this morning, not here. I'm going to have to go get some medicine at the Walgreens this afternoon because e-script is not delivering on time, and they use the post office. I have the option to drive to the store. What about my battle buddies who don't have that option? They have no one to take them to the store when their meds don't show up. This has to stop.
Damn right it does. And for anybody who's ever served and you've been away from home, tell me the best part of your day wasn't mail call. I mean, that's what everybody who is far away from home, serving in far-flung places around the globe, and some really good places. Some people get stationed in, Japan. Some people get stationed in Hawaii. Then there's the odd duck that gets the Aleutian Islands, But, and if you're the one that got stationed in the Aleutian Islands, or you're the one that got sent from Germany into the Middle East or Saudi Arabia, which is what Donald Trump just did for Vladimir Putin, took 12,000 out of Germany and moved them to Saudi freaking Arabia. Mail is everything. If you're getting your meds from the VA, mail is everything. And even if you haven't served, Howard didn't. His father did. His father was actually stationed in the Aleutian Islands during World War II. He was like the entertainment coordinator. You know that movie For the Boys? That was like Howard's dad that, organized those those tours, But anyway, I digress. Listen, I was in a far-flung place called New Jersey. And I was also in 2 far-flung places that were even far-flung, Texas. I was in South Texas, in San Antonio, obviously, for boot camp, and then stationed in at Shepherd Air Force Base, which is like right on the border of Texas and Oklahoma. Across the way was Lawton, Oklahoma, and that was the first crazy radio station I ever heard in my life. Was when I was there, and I heard these, pay-for-play preachers talking about the evils of Mary Jane, swear to God. And I said, oh, my God. I thought it was a comedy show, and that's where I got addicted to, the idea of being on the radio. But anyway, I got to tell you, mail is everything. Everything. Everyone loves the freaking mail. From the time you're a kid, you love the freaking mail. This man, I swear to God, you know what? He's just like, he's like the kid who killed his parents and then asks the court for mercy because he's an orphan. Donald Trump is killing the post office while requesting an absentee ballot and lying and insisting there's some difference between an absentee ballot and vote by mail. Well, in Florida law, just so you know, each state has its own thing, right? There are tons of states where you don't even have to request a ballot, like Washington State and Colorado that elects Republicans and Democrats, and Arizona, Republicans and Democrats, as you know, almost entirely by mail. So, you know, the man is just betraying an institution that is beloved in America because he knows he's lost. It's done. And he has to rig the election. He has to fix it. He has to question it. They're in court all over the place. They're in like 47 states with lawsuits trying to get rid of counting mail-in ballots. I mean, it's so unbelievable. But I have to tell you, there's some really great reading to do today. One of the things is an easy one, okay? It's Steve Schmidt, who is one of the founding fathers, if you will, of the Lincoln Project. You know, Steve Schmidt, he ran, along with Nicole Wallace, John McCain's campaign. I will never forgive the Sarah Palin pick. Never. So again, you know, you have to view these Lincoln Project people as the Hyman Roths of communications, because you can do business with them, you can like them, but you can't trust what it is that they're really after. But I will say, his Twitter feed is something you have to read. He did 11 tweets in a thread. I'll put, they're all together on my desk here. So this is amazing stuff. He said, I find it necessary to reach for the language and colorful colloquialisms of my native land, talking about far-flung places, right? New Jersey. I'm telling you, I was at Wright-Patterson, which is now part of the Fort Dix super base. The place is crazy. But he says, I find it necessary to reach for the language and colorful colloquialisms of my native land, New Jersey, in order to express my feelings about today's event in Bedminster. It was an effing travesty, truly an utter effing disgrace. The President of the United States of America stood behind the seal of his office, framed by American flags and his private club's membership, slurring and raving about his victimization. His titanic self-pity was only exceeded by his dishonesty and uncontrolled lying. His lying was only subordinate to his staggering idiocy, ignorance, ineptitude, and incompetence. The incompetence, even after all this time, shocks the conscience. When he wrote this a few days ago, 162,000 Americans are dead, and the economy is shattered, and many more will die. The evictions, foreclosures, and small business closings are just beginning. We are in the early hours of one of the greatest tragedies in our country's history, and none of it had to be, but it happened because Donald Trump is president. His malice, stupidity, ego, and insecurity are a lethal combination.
To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Do you or can you definitively say whether or not Kamala Harris is eligible, meets the legal requirements to run as vice president?
So I just heard that. I heard it today that she doesn't meet the requirements.
What?
And by the way, the lawyer that wrote that piece is a very highly qualified, very talented lawyer. I have no idea if that's right. I would have assumed the Democrats would have checked that out before she gets chosen to run for vice president. But that's a very serious. You're saying that they're saying that she doesn't qualify because she wasn't born in this country.
Oh, my God. What this man has done to this country. I mean, the wrecking ball that he is with these freaking insinuations and lies and racism and birtherism and division and breaking things, literally breaking things, putting obstacles in every American's way instead of clearing a path and letting us be Oh, it's just so unbelievable. He has divided this country, pitted American against American. The damage is gonna. I don't know. It's just it's so sad and sick. Here's the fact check on whether or not Kamala Harris is qualified.
Senator Harris is qualified to serve as vice president or eventually as president. This is a lie. This is absolute nonsense. The president couches this in the tone of just asking questions. I'm not sure if it's true. Check it out. In whatever form he raises this issue, it's just absolute garbage. It should not be humored whatsoever. It's wrong. The president also made a series of false claims about Joe Biden. As Gloria said, he kept suggesting that Biden was calling on him as president to issue a national decree to mandate masks. Biden asked every governor to issue their own mandate. He also claimed that Biden has been wrong at every turn about the virus. I'm sure you could find cases where Biden has been inaccurate in some respect, but Trump is the one who said we have 15 cases, we're going close to zero. He's the one who predicted a total death toll of 50,000, 60,000, 70,000, 80,000. We keep exceeding, etc. Trump also claimed that Biden's immigration policy, which he wrongly described as, quote, open borders, would result in the pandemic infiltrating every U.S. community. Jim, it's already around the United States. It's already in every state of the union. We don't need an open border policy for the pandemic to be everywhere. And Jim, lastly, the president continued to make a series of false claims about mail voting, wrongly saying that mail voting is easy for foreign countries like Russia, China, North Korea to grab ballots, to forge ballots. That's just false. Every jurisdiction has a different ballot, different paper, different security codes, different candidates on the ballot, and experts have emphasized that it would be extraordinarily difficult for any foreign country to do large-scale mail ballot fraud.
Yeah, but let's just take it, to the next step. So let's just say that North Korea or Russia or China or Iran or any other country decided that they were going to print fake ballots, and you filled them out. Who counts them? Russia? Who counts them? Iran? Who counts them? Bolivia? Who counts the ballots? The fake fraudulent ballots. This is such trash. It's so easy for him to lie. It's just such a sick, psychotic attack on people being able to choose their government. Obviously he knows that he's losing. Obviously he knows he's lost. The coronavirus task force briefings are about campaign efforts. That's all he does. He stands at the podium, he makes crap up about a rigged election. This is the 2016 campaign, complete with Russia's interference on social media. Russia is trying to hack into the election infrastructure as far as our intelligence community is concerned. And, it's the same exact scenario that we had in 2016, except people are rejecting it. People are saying, all right, I shouldn't have, but I was so desperate for like big change, and I thought maybe, so I did, and I was whatever. That people are done. They're freaking done. Everyone he knew went to jail. Everyone he knew had to plead guilty to colluding with Russia, to communicating with Russia, to interfering, to helping Donald Trump. I don't know if you read this or not, but Michael Cohen's book, That Thug, and he admits that he's a thug, which is kind of refreshing for a thug, right? But Michael Cohen's book is coming out, and the foreword of the book, which he wrote, had been released yesterday. I don't know if you were able to find it. It's definitely in the homework today. It says read Michael Cohen's foreword. So just click on it. It's 12 pages. Again, if you eat 5 tacos tonight, you're going to need something long to read tomorrow. So go ahead and get that and put it on your phone or put it on your iPad or print it out like I do, because it is hair-raising. Hair-raising. I'm just going to read you just a little teeny tiny bit of it, okay? Just so you have some understanding of Michael Cohen's contact with Donald Trump each and every morning as the first phone call of Donald Trump's day, and Michael Cohen's contact with Donald Trump each and every evening as the last phone call Donald Trump made every day. So Michael Cohen knows Donald Trump better than his family does, because remember, Michael Cohen used to lie to Melania about Donald Trump cheating on her. So anyway, he said, The President of the United States wanted me dead. What? He said, or let me say it the way Donald Trump would. He wouldn't mind if I were dead. That's how Donald Trump talks. Like a mob boss, using language carefully calibrated to convey his desires and demands, while at the same time employing deliberate indirection to insulate himself and avoid actually ordering a hit on his former personal attorney, confidant, consigliere, and at least in my heart, an adopted son. If that sounds overly dramatic, consider the powers Trump possessed and imagine how you might feel if he threatened you personally. Trump's theory of life, business, and politics revolves around threats and the prospect of destruction, financial, electoral, personal, physical, as a weapon. I know how he works because I had frequently been the one screaming the threats on his behalf as Trump's fixer and designated thug. Ever since I flipped and agreed to cooperate with Robert Mueller in the special counsel's office, the death threats had come by the hundreds on my cell phone, by email, snail mail, tweets, on Facebook. Enraged Trump supporters vowed to kill me. And I took those threats very seriously. The president had called me a rat and tweeted angry accusations at me as well as my family. All rats deserve to die, I was told. I was a lowlife Judas they were going to hunt down. I was convinced that someone was going to ram me with their car for walking the streets in Manhattan. I was exactly the person that Trump was talking about when he said he could shoot and kill someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. Oh, it gets more descriptive and progressively worse.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, here's the former Republican National Committee Chairman, Michael Steele.
There's so much bile from this. We should all be disgusted by the unmitigated racist, ignorant stupidity to sit there and pretend, oh, I just heard this. Oh, yeah, this is a great lawyer. Yeah, he's a good lawyer. This is the kind of stuff that this campaign, this country, this time cannot tolerate. America, I've talked to you about being punked. If you're going to get punked on this, then you deserve what you get. And it says a hell of a more about you than it does Donald Trump. So just to stop this right now, let's not give it one more moment of credence, air, or viability. Leave it alone. Not another story should be written about it. Kill it where it is.
So just about, it's almost universal, across party lines, across, where I sit is where I stand people. Michael Cohen, everybody is trying to tell you something. They are trying to tell you, first of all, Michael Cohen was inside the Trump campaign and actually says that they were colluding with the Russians, and that he, you got to remember, Michael Cohen was in charge of a real estate deal in Moscow during the campaign, and he tells the story in this book. Of course, I haven't read the book, only the foreword, but in this foreword, he said, that both sides were wrong. Okay, the Democrats who believed that. What did he say? That we were wrong. He said to half Americans, it seemed like Trump was effectively a Russian-controlled fraud who had lied and cheated his way to the White House. To the other half of Americans, to Trump's supporters, the entire Russian scandal was a witch hunt invented by Democrats who were unable to accept the fact that Hillary had lost fair and square in the most surprising upset in the history of American presidential elections. He says both sides were wrong. I know the reality, and it's much more complicated and dangerous. And then he says this: Trump had colluded with the Russians, but not in sophisticated ways imagined by his detractors. I also knew the Mueller investigation was not a witch hunt. Trump had cheated in the election with Russian connivance, as you will discover in these pages, because doing anything, and I mean anything, to win has always been his business model and way of life. Trump continued to pursue a major real estate deal in Moscow during the campaign. And then he attempted to insinuate himself into the world of President Vladimir Putin and his coterie of corrupt billionaire oligarchs. I know this because I personally ran that deal and kept Trump and his children closely informed of all updates, even as the candidate blatantly lied to the American people, saying there's no Russian collusion. I have no dealings with Russia. There is no Russia. And then he talks about waiting outside the hearing room the day that he gave his testimony, and that the sergeant at arms of the House, called out to him and said, "Showtime, you're on, Mr. Cohen." And he said he takes a deep breath in the hallway, and the photographers and the TV cameras, and he talks about how, it was overwhelming. And then he says, "So please permit me to reintroduce myself in these pages. The one thing I can say with absolute certainty is that whatever you may have heard or thought about me, you don't know me or my story or the Donald Trump that I know. For more than a decade, I was Trump's first call every morning and his last call every night. I was in and out of Trump's office on the 26th floor of the Trump Tower 50 times a day, tending to his every demand. Our cell phones had the same address books, our contacts so intertwined, overlapping, and intimate that part of my job was to deal with the endless queries and requests, however large or small, from Trump's countless rich and famous acquaintances. I called any and all of the people he spoke to on his behalf as his attorney and emissary, and everyone knew that when I spoke to them, it was as good as if they were talking directly to Trump. Apart from his wife and children, I knew Trump better than anyone else did. In some ways, I knew him better than even his family did, because I bore witness to the real man in strip clubs, shady business meetings, and in the unguarded moments when he revealed who he really was: a cheat, a liar, a fraud, a bully, a racist, a predator, and a con man. He has a million acquaintances, pals, and hangers-on, but no real friends. He has no one he trusts to keep his secrets. For 10 years, he certainly had me, and I was always there for him, and look what happened to me. I urge you to really consider that fact. Donald Trump has no true friends. He's lived his entire life avoiding and evading taking responsibility for his actions. He crushes or cheats anyone who stands in his way. But I know where the skeletons are buried because I was the one who buried them. I was the one who most encouraged him to run for president in 2011 and then again in 2015, carefully orchestrating the famous trip down the escalator in Trump Tower for him to announce his candidacy. When Trump wanted to reach President Vladimir Putin via a secret back channel, I was tasked with making the connection in my Keystone Cop fashion. I stiffed contractors on his behalf. I ripped off his business partners, lied to his wife, Melania, to hide his sexual infidelities. And I bullied and screamed at anyone who threatened Trump's path to power, from golden showers in a sex club in Vegas, oh hello, to tax fraud, to deals with corrupt officials from the former Soviet Union, to catch and kill conspiracies to silence Trump's clandestine lovers. I wasn't just a witness to the president's rise. I was an active and eager participant. Let me underscore the last crucial point. Let me say now that I had agency in my relationship with Trump. I made choices along the way. Terrible, heartless, stupid, cruel, dishonest, destructive choices, but they were mine. And they constituted my reality and my life. And during my years with Trump, to give one example, I fell out of touch with my sisters and my younger brother as I imagined myself becoming a big shot. And he talks about how he felt nouveau riche because he had made his fortune on taxi medallions, but he wanted to be seen as the guys that took personal private jets and, be on the top floor of a penthouse apartment in Manhattan and all this. And then he says about his testimony, Mr. Trump is an enigma. I testified to the committee. He's as complicated as I am. He does both good and bad, as we all do. But the bad far outweighs the good. And since taking office, he has become the worst version of himself. He is capable of behaving kindly, but he is not kind. He is capable of committing acts of generosity, but he is not generous. He is capable of being loyal, but he is fundamentally disloyal. He talks about how he felt testifying all this to the Republicans. He said, in the pitiful sight of Republicans throwing aside their dignity and duty in an effort to grovel at Mr. Trump's feet, I saw myself and I understood their motives. My insatiable desire to please Trump to gain power for myself, the fatal flaw that led to my ruination, it was a Faustian bargain. I would do anything to accumulate, wield, maintain, exert, exploit power. In this way, Donald Trump and I were the most alike, in his naked lust for power. I was so vulnerable to his magnetic force because he offered an intoxicating cocktail of power, strength, celebrity, and a complete disregard for rules and reality that govern our lives. I see the Republican Party and Trump followers now threatening our Constitution, which is in far greater peril than commonly understood, and following one of the worst impulses of humankind, the desire for power at all costs. To those who support the president and his rhetoric, as I once did, I pray the country does not make the same mistakes as I have made or have to pay the heavy price that I and my family are paying. The reason I testified to Congress was to exhort them to learn from my example. Given my experience working for Mr. Trump, I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, there will never be a peaceful transition of power. I concluded. That is why I agreed to appear before you today. You remember that when Michael Cohen testified. And then he wraps up the foreword of his book by remembering the kindness of Elijah Cummings, who gave the closing speech at that hearing that day. Elijah Cummings, who has since passed away. And he says that Elijah Cummings made sure he was secure in prison and that no one could put a hit on him in prison. And he talked about what a selfless act of kindness that was.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Most states are expanding vote by mail as a result of the pandemic, but President Trump has repeatedly claimed, without evidence, that mail-in voting will result in fraud.
They want $3.5 billion for something that'll turn out to be fraudulent. That's election money, basically.
He's holding up a proposed stimulus deal, he says in part, because
Democrats want that money to boost mail-in voting, along with $25 billion to help the cash-strapped U.S. Postal Service.
Now, they need that money in order to have the post office work so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. Now, if we don't make a deal, that means they don't get the money. That means they can't have universal mail-in voting.
Now, he just admitted he doesn't want to fund the government because he doesn't want to make voting easily accessible and safe.
What do you think about that?
Pure Trump. He doesn't want an election.
This is a very, very big story.
It's a huge story. You know why it's a huge story? Because while Donald Trump is going to claim fraud and rig, what you're really watching is election theft. What you're really watching is stealing. And he's stealing from you. Listen, Republicans have been stealing from the middle class. They've been stealing from the least of us forever. Since Ronald Reagan decided to redistribute the wealth up to the top and sell you on an idea that it would trickle down, and really it was a golden shower the whole time. No, sorry, just what. But now he's trying to steal your voice. All that's left. The reason why he's doing it is because when people vote, we get change. When people vote, we are getting change. And he doesn't want change.
So here's the thing. Everybody has to remember this and ask this question of yourself. Why don't they want us to vote? Why don't they want us to vote? Why are they creating obstacles to us voting? Well, the answer is because when we vote, things change.
Hello.
When we vote, things get better. When we vote, we address the disparities we've been talking about. We address the need of all people to be treated with dignity and respect. These are the things that are on the line in this election. And so we know how to jump over or get around the obstacles that for many of us have been in place since the day we were born. And that's going to be the job ahead of us in the next 80-something days, to jump over those obstacles and to make sure our voices are heard and counted in this election.
Now, this is really nothing new. President Obama actually talked about how Republicans have not wanted us to vote for a very long time. Now, you know, I always invoke Paul Weyrich from the 1980 speech where he, who invented the Heritage Foundation, which is a scam, just like the NRA, is a lot of self-dealing, a lot of paying of your own self, a lot of scams like Ponzi schemes. You write some crappy book, we'll buy your crappy book. You'll go to the top of the New York Times bestseller list because we will buy. It only takes, this is a dirty little secret, 25,000 books to sell in order for you to become a New York Times bestseller list author. Why only 25,000? Because nobody reads anymore. It's really pretty sad. Only 11% of America reads a newspaper. So 25,000 books will do it. So they buy that, and then they give them away when you donate to them. It's just a big, you know, like Amway and the DeVos family. It's always been a Ponzi scheme. The Trump thing, always a Ponzi scheme. I borrow money, and then I stiff the contractors, and I make money off the borrowed money, right? And then sometimes he stiffs the bank too. And if the bank comes after him, he sues the bank. I mean, this is just craziness, right? It's so un-American. It's so not the way Americans live their lives. It's such rarefied crime that we can't even imagine it. We can't even think about it. And the evil and the malice that's involved in thinking that way, being that way, doing those things. We don't know anybody like that. So it's like stuff of fiction, but it's real. It's real. But Barack Obama was talking today about how Republicans have never wanted you to vote. And, you know, I always bring up Paul Weyrich because Paul Weyrich said it out loud in the 80s. He said, you're operating under the theory that everybody needs to vote. We don't want everybody to vote. We don't. More people vote, the less likely we are to win, because there are more people that disagree with us than there are people that think redistributing the wealth to the richest Americans is a good plan. He knew that. They always knew that. But then we would show up. So they would gerrymander us out of having a majority. We would show up. So they would, purge us from the voter rolls to make it like a 7-hour affair. You would have to show up at the polls to be told you weren't in the book anymore. Then you'd have to go to the supervisor's office and show them that you make them get your voting, histories to show that you did vote in the last 2 elections. And they would say, oh, yeah, you're right. Oops, sorry, you got purged by accident, but you can't vote here. You got to go back and stand in line in your precinct where you were standing in line for 3 hours because we only put 5 machines in the library today. I mean, they thought of everything.
Look, as you said, I worry about everything. But Joe Biden is the right candidate. He's now picked an outstanding running mate. and those are big pieces of the puzzle. I think the convention will be an important opportunity to describe for the American people his vision for digging us out of the hole that we're in. But let's face it, the fact that it's not a live convention probably alters its impact somewhat. We don't yet know. We've never been in this circumstance before. All kinds of events can change. There's no possibility of a vaccine for COVID being developed and distributed between now and the election, but it is possible that some of the trials that are being done result in us knowing before the election that a vaccine's on the way. That might relieve people's anxieties, and that's good. We should hope for that, but that also can change the dynamic, particularly when you have a president who takes responsibility for nothing but takes credit for everything. And you don't know how the economy might react to that. So there are a whole bunch of circumstances, most of which Joe Biden can't control.
Oh, okay.
Here's what Joe Biden and Democrats can control is making sure that we vote. So if you ask me the single thing that I am most concerned about between now and November, it is that we do everything humanly possible to ensure that everybody who wants a change in administration actually registers that change at the ballot box, whether that is in person or by mail-in voting. Now, what we've seen in a way that is unique to modern political history is a president who's explicit in trying to discourage people from voting, right? I mean, usually the Republican Party for quite some time has actively tried to discourage people's votes from counting in all kinds of ways, whether it's voter ID laws or blatant gerrymandering, making it difficult for people in certain precincts to find their polling places, right? All that stuff is contrary to American democracy, but I think the Republicans' view has been it's all fair game as long as it helps us gain power. What we've never seen before is a president say, I'm going to try to actively kneecap the Postal Service to encourage voting, and I will be explicit about the reason I'm doing it.
Yeah, that is shocking. I mean, he's stealing the election in his mind, okay? That is what Donald Trump is doing. So don't call it anything else except stealing.
At RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
There you have it. They always say the quiet part out loud. They forget that, in 1980, they didn't realize, you could record things. You could actually record them. But Donald Trump is doing everything to steal this election, every single thing, all right?
But if the bill isn't going to get done, that would mean the post office isn't going to get funded. And that would also mean that the $3.5 billion isn't going to be taken care of. So I don't know how you could possibly use these ballots, these mail-in ballots. Absentee ballots, by the way, are fine.
Fine.
But the universal mail-ins that are just sent all over the place, where people can grab them and grab stacks of them and sign them and do whatever you want, that's the thing we're against.
But isn't that precisely the problem, is that you're saying you do not want to give this post office funding in this coronavirus legislation? They say they need it so they can be prepared. So if the pandemic is still going on in November when the election happens and people don't feel safe to go vote in person, they can vote by mail, and it can be safe and it can be secure.
I can understand the post office, and if we could agree to a bill, the overall bill, which is obviously a much bigger number than just the post office, that would be fine. But they have the post office as one of their requests. It's their request.
Right, but this morning you said you were against it, didn't you?
I'm only against, what I'm against is I'm against doing anything where the people aren't taken care of.
What is he talking about? I'm against anything where the people aren't taken care of. The people would be taken care of if the people could vote from the comfort of their own home and understand that the president was standing on that wall and protecting a free and fair election. Now, he was asked a follow-up question. What are you doing for the guarantee of a free and fair election? He has no answer.
What are you doing as president to make sure there is a free and fair election?
That the what?
What are you doing as president to make sure there is a free and fair election?
So everyone talks about Russia, Russia, Russia. They talk about China, China. They talk about all of these different countries that come in and run our elections, which is false. But what they don't talk about are things like very loose mail-in ballots.
Loose.
Universal in nature, that frankly Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, all of these countries that we are reading about, hearing about, and in some cases they're writing about intelligence-wise, these countries can grab those ballots or print forgeries of those ballots, and they would go out and they would have a field day. This is the easiest way for the mail-in ballots, is the easiest way for a country like a China or a Russia or a North Korea or Iran. I hear Iran, too. You know, that was part of the report.
Oh, God.
This would be very easy for them. This is much easier than, well, we have been very strong.
Okay, so again, who counts these fraudulent ballots? Who counts them? So all the supervisors of elections in every county, all the secretaries of state across this country, they're going to count Russian ballots. They're going to count Iranian ballots. First of all, that intelligence report said that Russia was taking active measures, just like in 2016, but this time to hack our election infrastructure. So that means registration rolls. That means ballots. Okay, not ballots, but the machines. Right? That means the machines and the counting. But this forgery idea, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. The mail is there are so many built-in safety precautions because states, entire states, Utah votes entirely by mail. Oregon, Washington State, Hawaii. Okay, there are so many safety things built in to their ballots because they've been doing it for 15, 20 years. He's pretending and lying and saying that we've just invented mail-in voting. We just invented it. Let me tell you something. The president of the United States Postal Workers Service, by the way, the Postal Workers Union, the main union that represents 200,000 postal employees, they just endorsed Biden. Okay. But here is Mark Diamondstein, the Postal Workers Union's president, last night.
It's truly shameful. And I think that people across the political spectrum who are fair-minded would agree. But at least the cat's out of the bag. The president of the United States himself connected the dots and basically said that he's willing to hold this national treasure that belongs to all of us, the United States Postal Service, older than the country itself, serving the people in so many ways. And here we are in a pandemic, courageously out there as frontline essential workers connecting the country in these challenging and dangerous times.
It's unbelievable. At first, we love the postal workers. Oh, they were out there every day during the COVID pandemic, and they were touching all the things and bringing the mail and fearless. Same thing with the grocery store worker. Oh, let's give them hazard pay. Now, all of a sudden, they've turned around and they've said, you're dung. You're pieces of dew. And we have to, make your jobs even harder. We have to take away your overtime pay. They took away the supermarket workers' hazard pay. And they're lowering hours now. So instead of a 40-hour week, now you can work a 20-hour week. Or instead of, overtime, you're now limited to 39 hours. The whole thing. And yesterday, I opened the show with an article that just freaked me out. It was an interview that was done with the head of the Postal Workers Union in Iowa, Ms. Carroll, who was reporting to NPR that they were taking away the sorting machines now to slow the mail down.
President Trump is admitting that he opposes funding to the Postal Service because of mail-in voting. Now, this is fueling allegations that the Trump administration is using the Postal Service to meddle in the election. Here's what he said yesterday.
Now, they need that money in order to have the post office work so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. Now, in the meantime, they aren't getting there. By the way, those are just 2 items. But if they don't get those 2 items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting.
And Christina and Laura, this is coming as Postal Service workers across the country are sounding alarm bells over the removal of mail processing machines from several Postal Service facilities. Now, we obtained documents, CNN did, that show that there was a plan to remove about 700 of these machines that sort through letters and pieces of mail. Why is this important? Well, many people, postal workers, are concerned doing something this big before the election could cause massive delays. That is not the only thing that we are monitoring here. We did also learn that while the Postal Service is sending out states these letters that say essentially they have to use first-class mail, which is more expensive if they do ballots, or else they risk the ballots getting lost or not getting there in time, the Postal Service, they told us about that letter that it was standard procedure, that they had been asking people to use first-class mail, recommending it for years. But sources told us that that wasn't entirely true, that even if states used in past elections the regular bulk mail, did not purchase that extra first class, that extra priority, that they were still treated, the ballots were still treated as first class mail. So
there you go.
Connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
This is a moment of real consequence for America. Everything we care about, our economy, our health, our children, the kind of country we live in, it's all on the line. We're reeling from the worst public health crisis in a century. The president's mismanagement of the pandemic has plunged us into the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. And we're experiencing a moral reckoning with racism and systemic injustice that has brought a new coalition of conscience to the streets of our country, demanding change. America is crying out for leadership. Yet we have a president who cares more about himself than the people who elected him. A president who is making every challenge we face even more difficult to solve. But here's the good news. We don't have to accept the failed government of Donald Trump and Mike Pence. In just 83 days, we have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
Yep. I'm liking her. I'm liking her a lot. I always liked her. I liked her as a, senator, and I'm learning all about her time as an attorney general and the district attorney of San Francisco, and she's a powerhouse. And she is a change maker. She is an agent of change. She recognizes when things are going wrong. She analyzes what caused things to go wrong, and she works to make those challenges easier for people to bear, for people to cope with, for people to deal with, like on the truancy issue, like on the first-time nonviolent offender issue. The Back on Track program, the idea that the schools needed to reach out to parents, and when they spotted a kid that hadn't been in class 30, 60, 80 days, there had to be meetings and contracts between caregivers, between government agencies that could help and would help, and parents who needed that help to identify. She is a serious person, and it's time for adults. It's time for serious adults with big brains to solve the big problems that we have as a nation. And I like her for this role. I liked her for president. I liked, she wasn't my first choice. My first choice was Elizabeth Warren. I didn't tell you that until after the primaries were all done, but she was my first choice. Elizabeth Warren was. But the more and more I hear and know and see about Kamala Harris, because she ended her campaign early, and that's because she's smart. I think what her idea was to put herself out on a stage and introduce herself to the American people. Same as Andrew Yang, same as Pete Buttigieg. They saw this as a good platform, a good vehicle to introduce themselves to the people of the United States, these primaries. That's why they were so crowded. We had an embarrassment of riches in our Democratic primaries. We have some of the most incredibly brilliant, effective, smart communicators as well. And I think that, you've not seen the last of Andrew Yang. First of all, his guaranteed income of $2,000 a month, that is exactly what Kamala is saying we need to endure 6 weeks of a real lockdown to overcome this pandemic. I mean, that man was so smart and so in tune with what was going on in the middle class, what was going on with poorer people, what was going on with the upper middle class, and people who make $20 an hour. And now the COVID pandemic has laid bare all of that being true. Okay, you have a K-shaped recovery. That's what we have. We don't have. We thought we would get. He says a V. It's no V. Then we said it's an L. It's flat. No, it's a K. The top 1% has already made it out of the recession because their money is making money again. You know why their money is making money again? Because the Fed keeps juicing the markets with trillions of dollars. They can't write you a check, the Fed, but the Fed can put dollars into the economy, and that's what's juicing up the S&P or the 30 companies on the Dow Industrials. It's only 30 companies. And, so the rich have already recovered from the recession. Their money is making money again, and it's taxed so low that they're fine. Why do I say it's a K? Because the top of the K goes to the rich. The bottom of the K is everybody else. And our jobs haven't come back. Only 42% of the people who were furloughed or laid off for the COVID pandemic are back at work. And Mitch McConnell just recessed the Senate. They're gone. They're not coming back till after Labor Day. So it's a K. Top is okay. Everybody else not okay. All right, Brother David in Kansas.
Sister.
Hi.
In the immortal words of Renee Taylor, rest her soul's psychic caterer, Electra Rosenblum, 130-something, I always say you can be right or you can be happy. And this week, for once, I was both, because I always knew he was going to pick her. And I got civil debates with friends who were like, no. And like you, my first choice didn't make the ballot in the nomination in the first place. I was kind of hoping at one point for a Warren Harris ticket. That said, he made the right choice.
Yeah, he
did.
She
is an agent of change. And she will, in 83 days, be the first woman vice president. And subsequent to that, down the road, the first female president. Here's the thing. This thing with the post office is at once both blatant criminal tactic, just laid out there. That's the most unprecedented thing about it. It's usually only in, like the Heritage Foundation meetings or stuff like that for him to just say in a press conference exactly what his tactics are, just like that, tells me that they know they're losing.
Oh, definitely.
Nothing left.
They have nothing left. That's exactly right. That's why they're running the same campaign they ran last time. Exactly. Low bar racism, the birtherism stuff again, right? The election is rigged. The election is rigged. All of that. It's the same campaign. Exactly the same. Exactly.
Precisely. And a quick shout out to the chat room and the streamers on all platforms. You know what to do. Go to Twitter. Go to RandiRhodes.com. Tell 10 people who watch to watch.
I almost made it to 60,000 followers. I'm like 59,100.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
I have pulled out my handbook for the last 4.5 years because we are very much at the beginning of the second half of Sinclair Lewis's It Can't Happen Here. There are still more of us. The Postal thing is going to backfire. I get calls literally every day at work from beneficiaries who are afraid they're going to die because their scripts haven't shown up.
Oh, I
or
know.
their Social Security checks haven't shown up. And when
well,
that starts
if Trump
rolling,
has his way, you won't have a Social Security check to look in the mail
and then there's
for.
that. Right.
I mean, he said that out loud, too. So, go with God, everybody. Go with God. Let me just tell you a real quick little update. Elizabeth Warren has tasked the Postal Service's Inspector General, who has now agreed to look into Louis DeJoy's conflicts of interest, meaning his millions of dollars of investments in the competitors to the United States Postal Service. We're about to see something really ugly.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Former Vice President Joe Biden with a sizable lead in the race for the White House. The latest PBS NewsHour NPR Marist poll finds 53% of registered voters backed Biden if the election were held today. 42% backed President Donald Trump. That is Biden's widest lead yet in this poll. We should note that this poll was conducted almost entirely before Biden chose Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate. Looking at the breakdown by age groups, the former vice president is ahead with voters 18 to 29 by 35 points, by 8 points with voters aged 30 to 44, by 9 with voters 45 to 59, and by 3 with voters 60 and older, a statistical tie with Trump, given the poll's 3.6 margin of error. Looking at the issues, Biden is ahead by 16 when it comes to who voters think would do a better job handling the coronavirus, and by 24 when handling race relations. Trump is ahead by 2 points when it comes to the economy. And when asked whether they trust information about the coronavirus coming from President Trump, over 2/3 replied, not very much or not at all. And what I want to understand is who is the 1/3.
Me too, Mika. Who are these people? Who are these freaks of nature that will never, ever, ever, ever come out from underneath the spell? I don't know who they are, but these polls, he knows he's losing. Well, losing. He lost. So now he has to steal the election. It's really sad, and it's really sick. And when this is all over, 2 things. Donald Trump's going to die in jail. Oh, yes, he is. And the Inspector General at the Postal Service, Louis DeJoy, is probably going to be Donald Trump's cellie, because these are federal crimes that you're watching being committed. The removing of sorting machines less than 2-3 months away from an election in a pandemic when vote by mail is expected to increase, and he's taking the sorting machines out. He's cutting overtime. He's, he hasn't explained any of his policies. Like why would he be taking these machines out? And the Iowa Postal Workers Union president, Miss Carroll, she said, I'm not sure you're going to find an answer for why the machines are being removed makes sense, because we haven't figured it out either. All of this to undermine an election that he clearly is losing. All right, Bill in Arizona. Thanks for holding.
Hi, Randy.
Hey, Bill.
There's something, I'm well aware of what they're doing to hassle our election, but we have to talk about what we need to do. There's something real important. We need to petition the younger members amongst us to go work the polls.
Yeah.
It's too risky for the old people to do it.
Yeah.
They've done it for so many years, and they do it with the greatest devotion. They love doing it.
They do.
We have to petition the young people amongst us to please go work the polls in great numbers so they can spell each other and keep the exposure down.
Yeah.
I know they can do it. Mic check, mic check, mic check. They work together wonderfully. But that's what we have to do. I'm asking everybody younger than me, your niece, your nephew, your cousin, the newspaper boy, anybody. Ask them all. Get the discussion started. That's all I say.
It's a great idea. It's a fabulous idea. It's a smart idea, and it's a needed idea. It's something that young people can do. And a lot of people listen and they wonder, what's my role in this? How can I make a difference? What can I do? Signing up to be a poll worker is a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. And you're right. Seniors have done it for years, and we are the most likely to get COVID really badly, and so the young people who seem to do better, yes, they need to mask up and volunteer and go and do their poll work. There's no question.
Let me say this, please, youngsters amongst this younger generation, show us what you can do. Make us proud of you in a way that's going to last the rest of your life.
Great
and
idea.
Make a difference.
Thank you,
for
Bill.
the rest of your life. Peace, Randy.
Peace. Yeah, it's a great idea. It's a fabulous idea. The other thing that people need to know is you can take your ballot that is mailed to you, and if you don't want to go through the Postal Service, you can bring your completed ballot signed. You have to sign an envelope on a mail, but bring it to the polling place and drop it off there. There's lots of ways to go around the Postal Service. But yes, everything about in-person voting relies on people being poll workers. And the younger, the better in this time of COVID. It's something we need to say over and over again. And I'm glad Bill brought it up because I always forget to tell you about the poll workers. The other thing I also wanted to remember to tell you today, please put a note in your mailbox to your carrier, your postal carrier, and tell them you've got their back. Tell them you appreciate them and you've got their back, okay? And thank your grocery workers, because this week there were reports all over the place in every newspaper, and I know a lot of people don't read the newspaper, and I don't really know why, but there are a lot of reports that the grocery workers, their hours are being cut, they're being treated like dog poo. At one time they were our heroes, they were risking their lives for us, and now they're being treated like garbage by a lot of companies, a lot of them. Publix in Florida, I think Kroger is doing a little bit of a better job from what I read. There's a ton of grocery store chains who were giving hazard pay to the grocery workers, and now that's ended, and they're cutting their hours because people are spending less on food because people don't have money. So this is the spiral we're in. So please thank your grocery workers and tell them that that they're being put through the ringer, and put a little note in your mailbox this weekend to your carrier. If you know your carrier's name, mine's Liz, you're lucky. If you don't, learn your carrier's name and put a little note in there and tell your carrier how much you love them, because you do. Emily in Arizona. Oh, Arizona today. Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
I just want to put a shout out for all the women that vote, that want to have the back of the black women that are the backbone of this country. Of this country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing right now. Yeah.
But I want them to go get a shirt, a black shirt like yours, because how pretty it is. And get the people. Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, I couldn't, if it sounded so quiet. I just want them to go get a T-shirt that says "Nasty Woman."
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Or they could I don't care what color you. I don't care what color you are. Just get that shirt.
And you could recycle your Hillary "Nasty Woman" shirt. It still works because it's the same campaign, just a different day. Chris in Connecticut.
Yeah, hello. I just wanted to point out the illogic of the president's statement about the millions of ballots that will be going out. Isn't the fact that only the registered voters will be counted, no matter how many ballots go out and to whose hands they go?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because only the registered voters will be counted.
Yes, very true. Kim in Palm Beach Gardens. Oh, my neighbor. Hey.
Hey, so I get so discouraged, but then when you remind me that he's going to die in jail, I mean, it just gives me a piece of life. So thank you for reminding us of that.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question about, I'm writing these postcards with this postcard campaign to encourage people to vote by mail.
Nice.
I'm wondering if we should still be doing that, or should we be writing something else on the postcard?
No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine, but they have to vote early. You know, people have to understand that if you have to ask for a ballot, that takes 10 days now to get to the supervisor's office. Figure turnaround time is like another 5-6 days, and then 10 days back to you. So you better do it now. But the beauty of having a mail-in ballot is you can always turn it in person. And here in Florida especially, we have early voting days. You can drop it off at the supervisor's office. I mean, you don't have to stick it in the mail. He's trying to stick it to us. We can stick it right back into a drop box. We can stick it into the hands of a poll worker. There's a million ways. And, as we get ballots in people's hands and they start calling for what should they do with it, we're ready to tell them what to do, how to deliver it. But God knows this is going to be tough.